years had passed since these events unfolded. At the time, I was 36 years old, having spent 15 years with my wife, Emma, who was 35. We had been married for 12 of those years and were living a comfortable upper-middle-class life with our 14-year-old daughter. My two closest friends from college, William and Logan, were significant parts of our lives. William, 34, was married to Isabella, 30, and Logan, also 34, had recently divorced that spring. Emma and Isabella had become close through our connection, and as a group of 3 couples, we had established a tradition of taking a week-long vacation each summer. This particular year, everything was set for our trip, but 3 days before we were due to leave, I broke my ankle. Unable to walk for 16 weeks and under the influence of medication that made me very tired, I chose not to join the vacation to avoid being a burden. Despite my wife's offers to stay with me, I encouraged her to go on the trip. Consequently, the vacation group consisted of Emma, William, Isabella, and Logan, with my absence due to the injury. The event unfolded on December 7, 2019, when Emma and Isabella had organized a shopping trip for the weekend, planning to stay overnight in a hotel. Their location was inadvertently revealed through the Snapchat map feature. After I sent a Snapchat featuring our dog to Emma, curiosity led me to check the map, where I noticed Logan's location matched theirs unexpectedly. Given there was no logical reason for Logan to be there, suspicion overwhelmed me. Attempts to contact Emma through calls and text went unanswered, prompting me to reach out to William for Isabella's whereabouts, suspecting they were all together. I told him what I had seen and that I was about to make the drive to confront them, and asked if Isabella had made the trip. In the saddest voice, he said yes, Emma picked her up that morning, and he knew that Logan would be there. For a moment, I felt relief. It sounded like Logan and Isabella were having an affair and my wife was just a cover. But then he said, they're having a threesome. I went totally numb, but he continued to talk and said, I'm sorry, it's not the first time she's been with Logan either, and I've been with her too. My numbness ceased and was replaced by rage. I cussed out and threatened William before finally hanging up. I had totally snapped, broke a few things around the house, screamed and cursed everyone. My daughter came out clearly afraid and concerned. She had never seen me like that, and I was hobbling around as I had only been cleared for walking 3 or 4 weeks earlier. Upon seeing her, I pulled it together, reassured her, apologized, told her everything was fine, and that I only freaked out because of a work thing. I'm sure she knew that was all bullshit, she isn't dumb. Once she went back to her room, I retreated to mine and called William. He picked up right away. I told him he better tell me everything right now. He said he wouldn't leave anything out. It started with the vacation back in July. It was basically 5 days, with a travel day on each end. The first day was largely just a chill day around the pool at the Airbnb. It was day 2 when things started to happen. I knew a full outing had been planned that day. Without their spouses, Logan and Emma kind of naturally paired off, seeing as they were with a married couple. It all seemed innocent enough and just friendly, but they seemed to get more comfortable as the day went on. That night was a pretty heavy drinking night with dinner back at the B&B. Through dinner and after the drinking continued, Isabella noticed how much flirtier and closer Emma and Logan were getting. After a while, William and Isabella went to their room and left Logan and Emma alone. After about an hour, Isabella decided to quietly venture out to see what became of them. She went by Emma's room only to find she wasn't there. She then crept up to Logan's room to hear the clear, distinct sounds of sex between 2 drunk people trying to keep it down. Isabella came back to the room and told William what was going on. I interrupted him at this point and said, how could she just let this happen? You said she noticed them getting like this during dinner. Why didn't she pull Emma aside and intervene? This is where the story went from bad to just totally fucked. Apparently, William and Isabella had been having marital strife themselves for some time, which included a lot of bedroom issues. She had been asking for an open for roughly 6 months at this point. He had finally caved but asked if they could try swinging first. It was their plan to ask Emma and I to swing with them on the trip, but when I broke my ankle and didn't go, they figured it was a moot point. So when Emma and Logan had their drunken indiscretion, Isabella figured maybe the swinging could be back on. The next morning, Isabella went to talk to Emma about it. She said Emma had the expected guilt and extreme worry about being found out, especially since there were witnesses. She said it was a huge mistake, but also that it was really good, especially for drunk sex. Isabella said, "Why stop? He just got divorced. You have been on edge because of work for a year now. We're on vacation and nothing came with you. Not your job, not Liam. That's me, not Olivia, our daughter. You left your whole life behind. Consider it a free week. William and I won't say a thing, and we'll cover if anything comes up." William told me she apparently liked the sound of it, but had apprehension. She went to talk to Logan, and then Logan came to William asking if they were for real about letting this happen. William said yes, he had been coached up by Isabella as to what to say, and told him to just get it out over the next few days. "You both deserve a real vacation from everything, and when we go back it all just goes back to normal and Liam will never know." I was ready to throw up hearing this. The betrayal of my wife and my two closest friends hit like an anvil. My head was spinning. I was so angry and hurt at the same time. But I needed to know the whole deal. He said over the next 3 days, they stuck to all the plans for the trip. I know this to be true because all the expected IG and Facebook posts went up. I kept getting included in the group Snap from everyone, and Emma would call twice a day to check in, with intermittent texts throughout the day. I suspected absolutely nothing while back home recovering. He said those last 3 days Logan and Emma basically acted like a newly dating couple. They made sure on outings that any pics/posts/snaps were innocent, but they held nothing back in terms of holding hands or kissing while out, and whenever they got back to the B&B, it was almost always immediately to Logan's bed. They were not quiet about it. It was very evident what they were doing and for how long. He said on the 4th night, they didn't even close the door. On the 5th day, Isabella enacted her plan. William doesn't know what was said, but she got her to agree to the swap. Logan did say something to William, and William just said, yeah, it's what he wanted. It wasn't, but he had totally caved to Isabella's pressure by this point. That night, he was with Emma. He said they did have sex among other things, and he tried to get into it, but was preoccupied knowing Isabella was with Logan down the hall. He said Emma put on a good show, but he knows she wasn't really satisfied. He said the part that really stung his ego was she went back to her room, while Isabella spent the whole night with Logan. In the morning, he overheard Emma say, "You only won to Isabella right when she got up." That was the day they traveled back, all silently swearing to take it to the grave. I remember Emma getting home and immediately coming to check on me and acting like she was so excited to see me. I realize now that she was doing what betrayed spouses call love bombing. This went on for weeks, and I should have known something was up. We had a good relationship, but she was so attentive and caring and loving for several weeks upon return. I always thought it was just guilt from leaving me behind with my broken ankle and just feeling refreshed from the vacation. I guess it was really guilt from the cheating. William went on to say as soon as they got back from vacation, Isabella was dead set on the open relationship now. There was no other option. William agreed, and they landed on some ground rules. First and foremost, everything was to be all access. Messages, conversations, everything. I asked why the hell would he want all, that if he hated the idea of her fucking other guys? He said he asked for that because her first rule was no limits. He wanted to have a list of people who were no-go, and she said no, this was about being open sexually, and they couldn't do that if people were off limits. It was gonna be the same for both of them, so he should be fine with it. If he wanted to try and fuck her sister, he could, and she didn't want coworkers, exes, anyone off her list either. He agreed on the stipulation he knows everything and has access to everything. He said he did this to collect evidence for his eventual divorce. She resisted at first, but when he said he'd expose what happened on vacation, she caved. At this point, he asked if I wanted all the messages he had. The vast majority of stuff was his wife with other men, coworkers, randoms. She had been busy, but there were plenty of messages between Emma and Isabella. I picked up that Isabella and Logan had started a regular affair about 4 months earlier. About 1 month ago, the conversation of the threesome started. That whole time after the vacation, Emma had been really good to me and seemed much happier than before. In the beginning of the convo, she stuck to the idea that what happened on vacation was it. It was vacation from reality, and now it was over and life would just go on like normal. About 2 weeks in, she started to show some interest at Isabella's encouragement. This is when Logan entered the conversation too. Emma agrees at this point, and the plan comes to be. In addition, William had a photo of Emma and Logan kissing, and a recording of him having sex with her. The son of a bitch had sneakily recorded it, not the best quality vid, but he did manage to get a clear shot of her face and tattoo. I thanked him for the evidence, then told him he was piece of shit, and after we had our divorces, he better never fucking contact me again. Emma went radio silent from my first frantic call until she walked in the door at 7 p.m. on Sunday night. She looked beyond nervous and scared. She already knew I was aware of everything. William had left Isabella a voicemail telling her he gave me everything, told me everything, that he wouldn't be there when she got home, and she needed to sign the divorce papers on the kitchen table. I told Emma to get her shit together. Olivia came out a moment later, and for a couple hours we pretended to have a normal Sunday night. Once she went to bed, I asked Emma what she wanted. She immediately broke down in tears and tried to hug me. I blocked the advance and she began apologizing profusely and begging for forgiveness. I told her to save it. We had a lot to talk about. I wanted every question answered 100% honestly. If I thought she was lying, I would end the conversation here and file for divorce on Monday. I had tons of evidence, and she wouldn't be able to get shit out of me. We are not in a no-fault state. Then I pointed out that she didn't answer my question. I wanted to know what she wants. She said she wanted to show me how sorry she was. She wanted to work for forgiveness, and for us to work past this. I told her I didn't think that was possible, but would let her explain herself. I asked why she cheated in the first place. She said she had a lot of fun that day, was feeling good and relaxed. She hadn't felt that way in a long time. Work had been so stressful for so long. She let the moment, the drinks, take over and just went with it. She tried telling me how terrible she felt after, but I cut her off. I wanted to know why she kept doing it. It was a totally honest answer. She wanted to and could. Yes, Isabella did get in her head a bit, but also she justified it to herself by saying she had already cheated once. What was the difference at this point? The next part was hard to hear as she described what kind of things they did, as it was a total when in Rome thing. Some of it she hadn't done to me in years. I asked if she was unhappy in our relationship and she said no. She said we have a good marriage, she just wanted to feel wild, feel excited. We had gotten somewhat monotonous and this experience was exhilarating. Her plan had been to have this much sex with me, but when I didn't go she at first thought well that's out, but once it was available she let herself get taken by the moment. I then asked about the swapping. She said that was a huge mistake. Isabella had talked to her about that on the last full day and about how they were trying it, and she thought this was even better than Emma, and Isabella, said it's perfect because she isn't even giving up Liam, just Logan for one night. She knew Isabella complained about sex with William and voiced that concern. Isabella claimed William was doing a lot better in this department, but also kind of flipped the table saying she needed this badly too, and since she was gonna cover for Emma, this was a great way to repay her. I asked about the threesome, asked why she planned that. Emma said she never intended to step out of line again and swore she was gonna make the most of our relationship going forward. This would explain the weeks of love bombing upon her return. She had been talking with Isabella like usual, and she just seemed like she was having the time of her life now that she was open. Emma admitted to being a little jealous. Isabella had been with several men and Emma was living a bit vicariously through her. When Isabella started the affair with Logan, she knew what she was missing and became more jealous. For the record, I know Logan had a rep in college for being a ladies' man, and if I'm being honest, was the best looking of the three of us. He had managed to stay the most fit as he aged and had only improved that post-divorce. Emma said when the threesome got proposed, she really tried to stay strong and not get drawn in, but as the weeks went on, she found herself just thinking about that. She told me she caved because Logan was really good. She had never had a threesome and honestly thought she could get away with it. At that point, she asked how I figured it out, and I said I didn't have to answer that. I asked why she didn't come right home once she knew I was onto her. She said because we were just going to do this. I knew this was coming. Is there really a difference between me staying and continuing the sex I planned and running home right away? The end results are the same. I asked her if there was anything else, and she said no, she just wanted a chance to earn trust, forgiveness, and to reconcile. I said no, I don't want this anymore. I am hurt, betrayed, and can't stand to look at her. I was going to file for divorce the very next day. When I woke, Emma was still home. She usually was on her way to the office but had taken the day off, anticipating I had done the same thing. Once Olivia was off to school, she began her love bombing. I told her I didn't care. I'd already seen all this before. She said she had one more proposal for me. All access to her, all of her stuff, all the time, marriage counseling, she would go to individual counseling, cut off Isabella permanently, and she would be an open book at all times for any questions. I said those are just things you do when you are trying to reconcile. I don't want to be a warden at home and I don't want to reconcile. She begged and pleaded and asked that I just wait a week, and if next Monday I still felt the same, she would sign no matter what, no contest. I ended up agreeing to the 1-week trial. She continued to love bomb and consistently tried initiating sex. I rejected these usual efforts and on Thursday told her I was not moved in any way and still planned to file on Monday. Friday after work, I could tell she had something in mind. I really didn't care. I was literally counting the hours until I could be rid of her at this point. The love bombing was not working, and I was actually getting annoyed with her overzealous efforts. She said she thought we couldn't go on because of the imbalance that her infidelity had caused. I wasn't sure at first if she was implying what I thought she was implying, but she was. Emma said we should have a threesome. I said you did more than that. She said okay, and you can have a week off marriage. I pointed out that was worthless. She's as a woman. If she wanted, she could go out right now and find a guy to fuck that very moment. I'm a guy, and unless you're a rich guy or a famous guy, you're not picking up women that easily. There's no point in me sitting in bars for a week or on dating apps not getting matches. She said, okay, you can have 10 hall passes that never expire instead. That can be the same woman or 10 different. I replied, you think that's not gonna impact our sex life? You're gonna be okay with that? Because I doubt it. She said she won't let it suffer. She will make a huge effort to be available for my needs, and we can do any of the things I've ever wanted. I told her I needed to think about it. In retrospect, I realized that what I did next was pretty sleazy. I should have walked away and started over. But I didn't. I told myself why not. Here was a threesome on the table. Here was any fantasy I had on the table, and I could use the 10 hall passes to find someone else to move on with. And when it was over, I would still divorce her all the same. She had wronged me, and in my mind, cashing in on these offers was totally justified revenge. I said I agreed, but I wanted the threesome to be soon. I said she needed to have at least someone agreeing by February 1st or I was out, because if she couldn't, that meant she wasn't trying and had just been out to buy herself time. I don't know how she found the girl, but in the week between Xmas and New Year's, she showed me a picture of a girl from her spin class. She was gorgeous, and I couldn't believe she found someone that quick and someone so attractive. Charlotte was 25 years old. Her and Emma had been chatting at Spin for months, but nothing past regular small talk. I asked how, and Emma just said she had her ways. My assumption was she offered her a few $100s. Around 2 weeks later, a significant evening arrived. I took an action motivated by spite, which might seem odd. Instead of being self-centered, I drew on my extensive Reddit experience, having come across numerous threesome stories in advice threads. Often, these stories highlighted how one partner, typically a woman in a FFM threesome, feels neglected. My aim was to ensure my wife felt involved and appreciated throughout the experience. I emphasized attention on my wife with Charlotte, engaging and praising her continuously. Although I enjoyed my time with Charlotte, my strategy was to convince Emma we were improving our relationship. Emma later confessed she participated in the threesome, hoping to regain my affection, and was surprised by how it seemed to strengthen our bond. Before this event, I had been leveraging Emma's commitment to be more sexually open with me. However, after the threesome, her approach shifted from a sense of duty to genuine enthusiasm for intimacy and experimentation. This change seemed partly driven by her hope that I would reconsider the open relationship arrangement. Mid-February, I took the first plunge into using the hall passes. There was a 27-year-old restaurant manager, Evelyn, close by my work. I had frequented it often and always thought she was a little flirty with me. I asked her out and lied. I told her I was 2 months into my divorce proceedings. I said we were still living in the same house, but that I had moved into the basement, another lie. Evelyn seemed hesitant but agreed to the date. Later on, I asked her what made her agree knowing my situation, and she said she noticed the first time I came in without my wedding ring. I took it off on DDA, And since by the time I asked her my tan line was fading away, it meant I wasn't just taking it off to meet women, but not wearing it at all. It wasn't too far after that the COVID shutdown began to hit. At that point, I felt stuck, but I used it as an excuse to not start marriage counseling. Emma had been insistent on this, but I always said I wouldn't until after the threesome. Then I said I wouldn't until after I went on a date, and soon as that happened, shutdown started. By April, I had seen Evelyn 7 times. We went on 2 actual dates that really tore Emma up before the shutdowns. Once those started, I just began going over to Evelyn's apartment as she lived alone. Needless to say, our relationship turned physical. At this point, I was tired of pretending to reconcile. I also think I had hurt Emma enough she was too. I still feel heavy guilt for this today. When I said it didn't work, and I still wanted to divorce, she didn't fight me. She was sad, she seemed defeated. I found a small 2-bedroom house and left Emma in our family home. The one stand-up thing I can say I did in all this was sit Olivia down and tell her the absolute truth. I told her the whole story from the beginning, her mom's infidelity, and my sleazy behavior after. I wanted her to know both of her parents were wrong. We both loved her and wanted the best, but we both wronged each other too deeply. The 3 of us decided that 50-50 custody was best, so she alternated week to week staying at each other's place. It took until January of 2021 for the divorce to go final. I dated Evelyn the entire time. Olivia and her got along fine. I was happy Olivia didn't see her as the other woman or anything. They never had a step-parent vibe or anything, but were friendly in the way a child is with their parents' friends. My relationship with Evelyn lasted until January of this year. It ended because I don't want to marry again or have more children. Emma had done some sporadic dating over the last couple years. One guy she was with for about 11 months. Then things got weird. We have co-parented pretty effectively through all this. The one thing we both wanted was to be there for our daughter. We've been amicable through all of her events and for her sake. Then her HS graduation happened this past May. We ended up sitting by each other. What should have been awkward just wasn't. We started joking around, talking, got a little flirty. It was refreshing. A week later, I was still thinking of the fun I had at graduation. I decided to call Emma and ask her out. She said, absolutely not. This caused quite the swell of embarrassment. Luckily, that was only temporary. After a long pause, she continued, unless we go to marriage counseling. I agreed. We had our first session on a Thursday and our second first date on Friday. We continue with therapy, opting for a specialist in ethical non-monogamy, aligning with our mutual curiosity in the concept. 6 months have passed, and discussions about my return to our initial home have begun. Olivia, surprised by our reconciliation, expressed mixed feelings upon her return from college, preferring to remain uninformed about our adventures. William severed ties with Isabella, relocating far away post-divorce. Isabella and Logan attempted a serious relationship that eventually ended due to lack of common interests beyond their physical connection. Post-divorce, Emma reconnected with Isabella, who has since remarried a former colleague of William's, ironically becoming his superior and hindering his job transfers. I amusingly reflect on these developments, especially Logan's current single status, harboring no good wishes for him. My journey continues, hopeful for a fulfilling conclusion eventually, recognizing that only time will unveil the outcome.